And thank you, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So, thank you for coming to join us for this conversation with. You can't. Is the mic not on?
I think it's on. I think you have to maybe speak a little more into the mic. That might help.
Okay. You know what I'm going to do?
You can hold it.
I'm going to hold it. Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me now? Yes, you can. So I am thrilled to be here tonight with Stephen and Malika. And before I introduce Stephen Burks Man Made, I need to thank all of the people who made this exhibition happen. Todd has thanked the sponsors who provided the support for this endeavor, but I have to give a huge shout out to the Mint Museum staff. Every single department had a role in this project, and everybody worked really hard up until the 11th hour today to make what you see in the galleries happen. And so I want to ask, how many of you have actually been in the galleries? So less than half of you. Okay, so that will inform what I say going forward. I also want to acknowledge the people who worked tirelessly to make what you see manifest. So I have to start with the scholar, Vanessa Drake Moraga, who is here with us from Berkeley, California. She is a Kuba Textile and Andean textile specialist, and she is giving a talk here in this room, 2 o'clock on Saturday. And I encourage you all to attend and bring your friends. I also want to give a huge shout out to Howard Sutcliffe, who cleaned and prepared for installation all of the textiles in the exhibition. So Howard, did you please raise your hand? And finally, I want to give a shout out to Patricia Ewer. Are you here? Where are you, Patricia? The textile conservator who did the first survey of the Kuba Textiles and who has worked with the Mint Museum for many years on textile and fashion conservation. So thank you, Patricia. And now it is my delight to introduce you to Stephen Burks Man Made. I'm not even going to read it, so I don't know what I'm going to say. But Stephen Burks Man Made is, I would say, a visionary design, industrial design firm. They are unique in their approach, which I would say is both aligned with craft, heritage, innovation, and spirituality, especially in product design. Most recently, in terms of installation, they were involved in the Venice Architectural Biennial, 2025, with the theme of porches. And in terms of, I'm going to call product design, I don't know what to call it, they designed an incredible altar seating object for Design Miami in December called the Lost Cloth, right?
Yeah.
That was based on the design of Kuba Textiles. So I have always wanted to work with Stephen Burks Man Made, and this project was the perfect opportunity. But the opportunity began with Wesley Mancini. Here you can see him in the studio, the former studio, in the South End, amongst many interesting objects, but in the background you can see Kuba Textiles that he had displayed in his office, and many more were displayed in his beautiful home. So that's how we got started, and we are grateful to you, Wesley. And most of what you will see upstairs in the exhibition, since it's less than half of you who've actually been in the galleries yet, are prestige cloth textiles. These rectangular, incredible design objects. And this is a design exhibition that does provide, of course, cultural context. But we are celebrating is the genius of the textile design in their unique, every textile is unique. They're embroidered by hand. I'm not going to go into the whole technical history. We'll be here all night. But they are unique in their approach to design that is non-repeating. It also is comprised of shapes that change in scale. They're very rhythmic, very kinetic, and they're also extremely tactile, but don't touch any of the textiles in the exhibition, please.
There's one.
And this is the reverse side of the textiles that you can't see in the exhibition, but just to give you an idea of the embroidery is so fine you don't see any threads on the back. And then just to remind you, and to echo kind of a theme of the exhibition, most of you probably never heard of Kuba Textiles, right? You might know kente cloth, you might know mud cloth, Senegalese, indigo tie-dye. And we know a lot, there's a lot of studies of West African textiles, but the textiles of Central Africa, in particular the Kuba peoples, are less known. They're very well known amongst Africanists and textile scholars. But the goal of this exhibition, as Vanessa and I were just saying, is to name it, for you to walk away and say, these are Kuba textiles, not these are African textiles, but to understand where they come from in Central Africa, from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And the Kuba peoples, to give you some context, the Kuba peoples, and there are many subgroups, most of the objects on view are from 2 particular subgroups. The Kuba peoples lived and live in a very patterned universe. It's not just the textiles, it's the architecture, it's their own bodies through scarification. And their own king's name comes from the word textile. And here is a close-up view that you won't see in the galleries so much with the textiles themselves, but you will see. Please read the video screens where all the text is provided. Ooh. And now our conversation will begin. Okay, so we don't know where this is going to go.
Yeah.
We've been talking all day, but I do have some serious questions here. So, Stephen Burks Man Made is engaged in many culturally grounded design.
Your microphone.
Culturally designed design projects, from seating furniture to lighting. They work with artists around the globe, and you give those individuals agency, and that's a defining hallmark of your practice. How did your interest in industrial production coupled with the handmade come about? And I suppose this is for Stephen because you started Stephen Burks Man Made. Malika joined later.
Yeah, Malika's my partner. We work together. We've been working together about
Partners and partners.
partners and partners. We've been working together about 7 years. But before I answer the questions, we would just like to thank the Mint for having us here. We'd like to thank Annie and her team, and of course Wesley for giving us the opportunity to engage with the art form and to begin a research project that for us hasn't stopped, and I don't think it's gonna stop. Can't stop, won't stop, Annie. So, yeah, I mean, since for the past 20 years, I've worked in over 25 countries on 6 continents, with hundreds of different artisans, from Senegal to Peru to Ghana to India to the Philippines to Indonesia to Mexico, to the DRC. And it's been an education. I have to say, it's the greatest gift of my life to have the the ability and the freedom to travel and to prove what is the ethos of the studio for us. We start with the idea that everyone, not just the people that raise their hand, but everyone is capable of design. We all dream, we all have imaginations, we all, in one way or another, like alter our environment, and so leave an impression on the built environment around us. And so that's really the starting point of the studio, of our practice. And from there, we go deeper into getting as close to the act of making as possible, for example, and what we like to describe as bringing the hand to industry. And these are approaches to design that are atypical to the kind of 20th century model of the designer as auteur, and really evolved from the recognition of my identity within the kind of international design world. And so with that acknowledgement, I had to say to myself, well, I come from a different place than people are used to seeing a designer come from. The south side of Chicago, represent. And my story is atypical, and so with that in mind, I had to ask myself, well, maybe design isn't just a Western project, right? Maybe everyone in other places of the corners of the globe, quote unquote, in what we call the majority world, because the majority of people live there, maybe they should also be involved in what we consider to be contemporary design. And so this is how I began as a product development consultant, working with nonprofits like Aid to Artisans in South Africa and in Peru, like Artesanías de Colombia in Colombia, Design Network Africa in Ghana, for example. And that began kind of my journey into really discovering that craft is a kind of, or let's say, making by hand is a kind of gateway to a kind of broader consciousness about design.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm just.
Well, I'll just hold the mic.
I would add, when I met Stephen about 7 years ago, what really drew me to the practice was the social aspect of it. And I grew up in Cambodia in a majority world context too, and I'd always had this kind of intuition that craft had power, it had potential, and seeing Stephen's practice and how he manifested that was very inspiring. And so together, we've been really trying to dig deeper into that. I don't want to say mission, but that dream that we have, right? To see a more pluralistic vision of design.
So you work internationally. You're a very busy practice. What was it about when I called you? Did I call you? We Zoomed? I don't remember. But I do remember how I should, a little back up. I knew that this project needed since it's a design exhibition, I was seeking a designer who could imbue culture to the exhibition. And I remember, actually, it was watching the Friedman Benda Design Dialogues, you and Glenn Adamson. That's when I said, I love the way this man thinks. And remember, I called you just to ask you to write for the catalog.
I don't remember at all.
You don't remember that?
Honestly,
you don't remember what you said to me?
I'd never even heard of the Mint until Annie called.
No, I know. But so my question is, no, but this is what's interesting, because we had this great conversation. So you don't remember it?
So let me explain. Let me explain.
You have to know where I'm going with this.
I'm more long-term memory. Malika is short-term. Malika's, we work as two brains.
I don't remember this
basically.
conversation either.
So.
You don't remember? Oh, because
Yeah. No, of course I do.
Okay. because we had such a great conversation about these technical, blah, blah,
Annie's so memorable.
and stop it. And because it was a phone call, I don't think it was a Zoom. I don't think.
Wasn't it? We
Are
did
you
have
sure
a-
it wasn't in person?
No, oh, was it in the Dunhill lobby?
I think so.
Yes. So he came here to look at the textiles, to write a piece as a designer, because it's a design exhibition. That's right. I asked you to write about it. And then what evolved, because we had such a great rapport, was, well, why don't you design the exhibition?
Yeah, and that's
That's-
how a design
was in the back
practice
of my
is made,
mind, but it wa-
basically. You have to take the little seed and grow it into something bigger.
Yeah. But why did you say yes? Because you are so busy. What was it
Well,
about this project? Because
we-
it's small, given a lot of your projects. It's a small project.
So I did my master's in architecture. Malika did hers in urban planning. We met at the Harvard Graduate School of Design, where I was doing the Loeb Fellowship. We like to think of our practice as being architecture adjacent, but there's a kind of quieter story at work in what we're doing, and a lot of the work appears to be inspired by weaving, et cetera, because weaving is, for me, a kind of universal art form, and it exists in all cultures in the world. And so we're also textile adjacent as a practice, right? And so to have the opportunity to not only engage with the material directly, to create the environment that the material will be displayed in, but then also to have a critical voice in the catalog, it seemed like for us the full picture. And then to be able to travel to Kinshasa, you'll see in the Future Gallery where we shot a documentary where we were learning Kuba, as is our way to do things, workshop-based practice, go into the field and spend time with the people that we dream of working with. It's just such a great opportunity. We couldn't say no, Annie. Yeah, you had us from, hello, exactly. Thank you. Thank you.
So funny. Well, that's kind of interesting for you to say all of that, but I also want everyone to know that you actually took it upon, you did become so engaged, I would say beyond passionate. There was something that just drew you, not just to the textiles, but as designers, to the makers. So I want everybody to know that on their own, they found funding to go to Kinshasa and make a documentary that you will see upstairs on what's going on today in a particular workshop, and you're going to talk about that.
Yeah,
and
a lot of our research is self-funded, only because we don't really know how to ask for money. No, we're not good at it. Most artists aren't, but I think there is another aspect to the practice, which is very much about bringing more voices, more diverse voices to the platform of design, right? The cultural, economic, spiritual, artistic transformation that design makes possible for many of us that take it for granted. In other places in the world, people have been making things for generations, but they haven't really had the opportunity to communicate within the context of design. And so, understanding that this is an art form that dates back to the 15th century in Central Africa, it's just fascinating, especially when you look at all of the greater influence, right? So we organize the exhibition into past, present, and future because, of course, there's the historical component. We can't really understand what we're looking at without understanding how it's made, where it's coming from, its relationship to the ceremonial, its relationship to the Kuba Kingdom. So all of these practices that speak, the majority of the exhibition are the Kuba prestige cloths, but as you saw in the images, there's a lot more to it. And we're dying to go back to visit the villages and try to witness the ceremonial practices. But at the same time, right, we understood that there had to be the past, but there also has to be the present. We have to speak to, very much wanted to, and the way Vanessa has in the catalog, speak to the influence of Kuba. Artists like Henri Matisse,
Gustav Klimt,
Paul Klee,
Sonia Delaunay,
Vasily Kandinsky, all cite Kuba as inspirational. In fact, I think Kandinsky, what is the book called? The Spirituality of Art from 1911, where he talks about the importance of craft and making by hand as a kind of gateway to the spiritual. So, for us, representing the influence and inspiration that Kuba has had on modernism. I studied at the new Bauhaus at IIT in Chicago, so I'm a closet modernist. On modernism, very important to me. And then, in a way, it's kind of about reappropriation, right? So the Future Gallery shows Malika and I in Kinshasa, working with Kuba artists, really proving that, what did I say? In order for an art form to have a future, it has to have a present. And so, we kind of encountered stories that Kuba was a lost art form. Kuba no longer existed in the way that it had in the past. And I don't know. I kind of take offense to the notion that any one culture should dictate taste and should dictate progress. And so, we believe in multiple timelines, that there are, every culture on earth is kind of having its own story upon its, during its own kind of timeline, not really having that timeline predetermined by others, right? And so just because the modern was quote unquote done with Kuba or rushed through Kuba doesn't mean that Kuba doesn't still exist. And so part of our practice and what makes this project so thrilling to us is that we had the opportunity to go there and learn Kuba firsthand and prove that, there is a future for it. So that documentary means the world to us, you guys. So please spend a little time with it if you can.
Well, the documentary is very informative and very moving. To see the rapport you have with the maman, the women who are doing the embroidery. But this all brings up a question. It's not on here. But so in your practice, Malika, your title is cultural director. So how is that different? How does that role inform what you do, and how is it different from Stephen's approach?
I'm a kind of megalomaniac, so I'm trying to direct everything. but no, I mean it's about creating space for each other. So please, why don't you answer?
Oh, no, I thought you were going to continue.
I'm good.
I think cultural director, I actually at first the title was special projects, so I evolved into cultural director.
Special project. So what was a special project as opposed to a project?
We did briefly
Anything she
own
wanted
a
to do was a
gallery.
special
We
project.
opened a gallery in Dumbo during COVID, and anyway, that's a long story. But no, I think cultural director, speaks to design culture. Also, it's design is an activity that someone like Stephen, who has training in, does. But as our practice likes to make clear, is that design is very much a social project. It's very, it happens here in these rooms, in these conversations, in these exhibitions.
Design is cultural production.
And so I'm also contributing to the studio with writing. But really, we do everything together. It's hard to distinguish.
So, as you were talking about what you were doing, opening the gallery in Denver during COVID, what you did during COVID was extraordinary. So I'm getting very off topic, but because I'm not sure everyone knows what you did during COVID or saw your exhibition at the High Shelter in Place, your response in your own home environment was, I mean, the products that you developed were extraordinary. So talk about design culture during in Brooklyn and
Yeah, well,
during COVID.
Annie's referring to a traveling exhibition that opened in 2022 at the High Museum of Art called Shelter in Place, that really came together during COVID when Stephen's son Anwar and I were living together at home in Brooklyn, and dealing with all of these overlapping crises, as many of you were as well, and also thinking about what role design can play in response to the Black Lives Matter movement, in response to the need for spirituality in our contemporary homes, in response to the inundation of media in the home. So what we were creating were these prototypes, speculative prototypes, very much inspired by the radical design movement in Italy, and these, what we actually made were prototypes, and really trying to, I guess, invite more participation and create room for critique and criticism.
Yeah, I mean, to look at the spaces where design doesn't normally exist. All of us have a spiritual practice, all of us in this room, I'm sure. But design, contemporary design, doesn't really address that, right? And so when we were thinking about the fact that, my son lost both of his maternal grandparents in the first month of the pandemic, and we wondered as a family, how could we mourn? How could we, memorialize when we couldn't gather collectively? And so we referred to Malika's culture and many Asian cultures' tradition of the spirit house, of public memorial, of a small kind of altar to our lost loved ones, and set about designing a contemporary form for that. How does that exist in our lives, and what could that be? The result was a kind of small portable house with a light incorporated into like a portable lantern in a sense. And that was in the exhibition, and also appeared in a new version at the Biennale in Venice last year.
And also was in an exhibition at Volume Gallery, no?
Spirit Houses became a solo exhibition at Volume Gallery as well.
Yeah. So talk about, I mean, I do call your practice a visionary practice because you exist in many worlds, and so you design all kinds of things, useful, always useful, but maybe not in a function that's obvious, right? I keep going back to the lost cloth because I thought it was genius. I'm sorry, you'll have to Google it, everyone.
There's
do you have a
probably
slide?
an image.
Yeah, there's some slides coming up.
It was very moving, was described as furniture in the context of Design Miami, but it's really avant-garde design. And
well, what Annie's referring to is really the culmination of our engagement with the Mint in many ways, and the influence of this project, Designing Dynamism, on our practice. And the way that we incorporated our research into Kuba into several other projects. The documentary being one. What quickly followed that was a residency in Japan, in Yoshino, and a solo exhibition at Space Zone Gallery in Tokyo, where we combined Kuba, contemporary Kuba textiles with cedar sculpture, and that exhibition was called Kuba Sugi. And then following that, the Lost Cloth Object, which we did with the wood, the innovative wood materials company Alpi from Italy. And so that was really the translation of Kuba Textiles into wood marquetry for the first time. And so these projects for us are ways to create space in contemporary design for these vocabularies to exist. For the notion of Kuba to exist in a furniture context like Design Miami, for example, and in avant-garde design and collectible design and sculpture. So we, in many ways, used our practice last year to talk more about the importance of this one particular art form.
Yeah. And several people have asked me over the past week as we were installing the exhibit. Well, we were installing the exhibition over a longer time, but this week I was asked by staff, friends, a lot of people, where do they live? Where's their home base? Because they go on your website, I guess it's not obvious, I don't remember. And I say they have a nomadic lifestyle. And is that by choice because you're seeking these various cultural experiences? Or does it just happen because you're invited?
Empty nesters. Basically, my son went to college. Malika and I saw the opportunity, and we were kind of ready to get out of New York. Just to honestly, to get back to the way that the practice began, to get back to getting closer to the making, getting back to the direct collaboration with artisans and industry as much as possible, to allow our practice to take us out of the studio, out of the kind of 20th century model, and into the space where we feel there's the most opportunity for collaboration and innovation, and that is where the things are being made. So last year was our first full year as a nomadic practice. We began in January in Montana with the Archie Bray Foundation working in ceramics. In February, we found ourselves in Senegal with the Josephine Annie Albers Foundation working in textiles again and paper mache. In March, we were in LA.
And then in Alabama, working with the G-Spin
Quilters for the Venice Biennale. In April, we were in Milan for the furniture fair. In May, we opened the Biennale. In June, we traveled to Kinshasa. We shot that documentary and relocated to Yoshino, a small village in Nara, Japan, where we developed the Kubasugi project.
We traveled to Sao Paulo.
In between, to work on a new lighting collection. And then last October, we decided to spend the fall in Paris. And because she's always wanted to live in Paris, and we did some we did some work on paper, and we designed a textile in the Netherlands, and
yes. For this exhibition. By the way, the furniture that you see in the exhibition upstairs, the textiles were designed by Stephen Burks Man Made.
A brand new project that we literally did in December. So those are the prototypes, which we didn't think we could get done in time, and we appreciate Annie's patience there. So that is, Wesley, that's our first commercial textile. So we're so excited to follow in Wesley's footsteps there.
Well, also to have the prototype actually for a museum is a great
Thank
thing.
you. Thank you.
I just wanted to speak to nomadism again. I think there's something very humbling about not having a home, and you arrive and you kind of have to rely on strangers who will eventually be friends or even extended family, and so this year we're not traveling as much. We're going to be a little more rooted and take the time actually to process what the last year and a half.
So many opportunities and things to do. So
was like, yeah, exactly. I mean, everything was happening so quickly. We really, this exhibition opening is kind of a culmination also of this global nomadic chapter. So it really, it's really touching, heartwarming to be here and to celebrate it with you all.
We feel the same way. Just, I'm sure you have felt that this evening. So I suppose we should talk a little bit more about what's upstairs, because many people, I've already told you this, are just, the installation, the interior architecture, the lighting, the feeling of the space is not like, I hope those of you who've been upstairs in the galleries have felt not like you're in a gallery space, but that you're kind of transported to another place. You might not know where it is, but it feels very domestic in a way, and the way Stephen designed the structure through which you see the textiles.
It was a process.
It was a process, yes.
It was a process.
But what, and do you have any image? Oh, that's...
So yeah, the
That's
slides
the-
are,
in
yeah,
the
this was
That's
a,
Japanese-
That's the Kubasugi project.
Yeah, Kubasugi.
so you see the Kuba Textiles there in the Rafayettes that are hanging, which are almost, they're speaking to the Japanese scroll that would be hung. This object is called the tokonoma, which is originally an object in the interior architecture of a traditional Shinto Japanese home, where one would display their taste. So they would place a flower or ikebana and a scroll displaying the seasons. And we translated that. So speaking about how we are translating Kuba, continuing to express it in the work that we're trying to do, we wanted to kind of mash that up with Kuba, let's say. And so you see the cowrie shells there.
But upstairs is really a different thing. I mean, it's much more about the intimacy of Kuba. And I have to say, the moment that you took us down into the vault, Annie, and allowed us to...
The vault being the storage room at Mint Uptown.
Yeah, and so to see the work in person and to get so close to it and understand, that texture and to understand the labor in a sense, right? The manual investment, the depth of meaning and the kind of indecipherable nature of it all that's so inspiring. I wanted everyone in the gallery, we wanted everyone in the gallery to have that kind of intimate experience with the work. Mm-hmm. So while still achieving touch distance and also, the lighting, the very soft lighting is a conservation issue. But we wanted you to see each work of art individually. When Kuba's seen en masse, it's very easy to kind of lose that the importance of the individual works and the importance of the collection, I think, is that, Wesley's brought together so many, charged, incredibly dynamic pieces they're quite small but quite powerful at the same time, which is why we named the exhibition Designing Dynamism, because there's no other way to talk about it, in a sense. It's quite calm when you're there in the gallery, in a way. The colors are maybe a bit stronger than what you're used to in a museum context, but the feeling, I think, is quite calm. But the dynamism happens when you look through those individual windows and you see what's going on in these amazing works of art.
Yeah, and what I appreciate so much about the design, there have been a series of exhibitions on Kuba Textiles focusing on various aspects. So I think top of my mind is the most recent exhibition at the Baltimore Museum of Art, not that recent, maybe 2018, where they carbon dated everything, right? But they showed the works, and it was a magnificent exhibition, but the works were on off-white walls in a gallery, and it was a very intellectual exhibition. You learned a lot, but there was no feeling. And what this exhibition achieves is what Stephen's talking about, is you have a visceral response to the objects. It's very quiet, very mysterious almost, but it allows you to I think, it allows you to feel the original intention of some of these works, at least what we guess to be the original intention, because we can't know for sure.
I mean, we never want to underestimate our audience. We never want to undervalue the importance of beauty. I think it's really innate to all of us. It's deeply satisfying, right, to be overwhelmed by something amazing. And I don't want to say that that's our goal because we can't, you never know what a project's going to bring and how you'll approach it. But, that's when that happens, we've achieved something.
There it is.
Yeah, so this is the
Interesting angle.
lost cloth object. This is the last piece that we showed at Design Miami last December, and this is over 1,000 pieces of 7 different recomposed endangered hardwoods. And so we thought about this as a kind of ceremonial, kind of speculative ceremonial site, not as an individual product or as a piece of furniture, but as a spiritual place where anything can happen. And Kuba, if I can just speak a minute about the spiritual importance of Kuba and this work for us, is that there is something about the sacred and the modern coming together. And the way that we experienced in Kinshasa working with the artisans, we experienced ritual and ceremony as a path to the sacred. And I think that, in African American culture, right, we believe our ancestors are always with us. And, as Brother Theaster likes to say, we gather in community, we form a circle, we define spiritual space, we define sacred space. And I think, in the Western world, we've gotten really good at defining profane space, defining space that isn't sacred, defining space that is abusive and destructive. And so we've forgotten in many ways that we can also define sacred space. And this is something that Kuba has taught us.
Well, we could talk forever, as we know, as we have. Oh, that is a close-up of one of the textile patterns on the seating, on the puffs that are in the galleries.
I'd love to hear from you guys.
I was going to
are we taking
say, I
questions?
think I can see people are
Question-
eager with
some
questions from you
over
all.
here.
So we will
Do we have a
start
microphone?
taking questions. This man had his hand up immediately. Sir, could you speak loudly, or do we have a microphone? Where are my friends from?
How you doing?
My name is Paul Nelson, originally from Africa, Sierra Leone, Cameroon, Nigeria, and this United States. But I'm very appreciative of what you've done. It's very intriguing, your travels. But when I saw what you're doing, then especially in Congo, then there are some people in the room. In Congo,
Yeah.
then my interest is, I'm saying to myself, wow, what are they thinking? I want to give them that voice. And we have someone who represents the continent itself, in Africa, but also DRC. And he's here with his daughter, and they are right there.
Ah.
So told me. Yes, so
I had a feeling.
So Dr. Joel, it will be interesting to hear from you and your daughter because it's your country, Congo. Even though I represent the continent, I work with the SOAD, the State of the African Diaspora, the 6th region. I'm one of the ambassadors. I'm also the regional director for the African think tank. And I actually made a visit to the museum here. And the reception was wonderful. And I want to say thank you to the staff here at the museum. We're going to be doing an event here as well. But I also want to invite you to experience the African think tank. We have an event
gotta
coming up
talk.
soon. Absolutely. But Dr. Joel, please, and your daughter, because Congo is being represented a lot here. I want you to tell them how you feel so people can understand it. Thank you so much, everyone.
I guess we want to give them the mic, right?
You need a microphone over here, please. Here it comes. Thank you.
Kind of putting them on the spot.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dina, and I was born in Kinshasa, and I am looking forward to see the documentary that you have put together. I have not been upstairs yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing it, and just, I think I am very appreciative that you're honoring the pattern. Part of my experience, honestly, is that I have learned about the Kuba fabric and the empire in depth about 2 years ago, a year or 2 years ago. I was glad to see that it was from a group of people in Kinshasa, but just also seeing it here in Charlotte. I've been in Charlotte for about 20 years now, so seeing it being displayed, I'm just appreciative of it. And I'm a fan of the art myself, even though my focus or my profession is in health, but art is just something that brings calm and something that's much needed in our lives. So thank you.
Thank you.
That we are from the region where the Kuba culture is practiced. And I grew up seeing that and living that. And for those who are here, you can learn that when they talk about the Congo, it's not only about the war, the raped women, the travel, but it's also about a culture that can unite more than just one nation. Thank you very much for the work you have done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm probably too much of an engineer for this question, but we could talk all night about the weaving. But one of the things that interests me about design of these Kuba textiles is they are primarily what I would call geometric. You see a lot of squares, triangles, as opposed to what I would call florals. You know, coming out of Europe, you see a lot of floral designs at the same time frame, florals as opposed to geometrics, and I love that. I love geometric designs, and I wondered if you guys could comment on what it is that had these Kuba guys focus on geometrics like this, as opposed to, the genesis, as opposed to trees and flowers and rivers and a lot of things that you see coming out of Europe, as opposed to out of Africa.
Well, this is a question for Vanessa, but I'll answer it with the knowledge I have. But the geometry really has to do with the warp and the weft of the woven backing fabric that all Kuba prestige cloths are based on. So traditionally, the men in the village are weaving the raffia fiber into a backing fabric, and then the women are embroidering it or applying the cut pile on it. And so when we were there, one of the most beautiful moments of learning was with Maman Adele, who was telling us that actually she's counting the number of stitches in order to maintain
Very mathematical.
the exact spacing of the pattern. So she'll make 4 stitches here on every diagonal line and continue that throughout the square.
Working from the corners inward.
Mm-hmm. So Yeah,
we
go ahead.
learned that there are over, 200 different motifs. Obviously not all of them are still practiced, but I think the artisans that we worked with, the artists we work with, were working in, I think, over 170 different motifs that they could still. We managed to learn, or tried to learn, only 3. And so the motifs are combined to produce these geometric patterns that were in the prestige class that were then given as offerings. So just to answer your question about florals, I mean, they're the definition of abstraction because they're not trying to represent the existing world, right? They're not representational in any way. And so this is why I think they were so quickly co-opted by modernism, because as the modern were trying to make a break from the representational past, they saw in Kuba a kind of prime example. And so there's that reverberation that then continues to influence and inspire because of that level of abstraction.
Are there any curves at all?
Please.
So one of the most important things I think we always have to focus on is that, in fact, this is an art form, the patterning, is really devised by women. It's an art form created by women working in the field of embroidery and the special technique that they use, which is this cut pile. And but they do have another type of abstraction, which is curvilinear in form, and it's applied to a different type of textile. These geometric recombinations which are very mathematical, as Stephen has said. In fact, mathematicians have examined the symmetry, and apparently they've explored every type of symmetry that is possible. And but there is a type that's used for ceremonial skirts and dance skirts, and that is a freehand cut curvilinear form with these sort of flowing patterns, very different, but it's still abstract. So I think it does, as Malika said, it does originate in the structure of the weave, because you're essentially counting your stitches, you're working in the, like a weaver, you're working with that very rectilinear format. And so it's a natural evolution. But anyway, so those are the 2 types of abstraction, and they're imbued with a lot of cultural value, these ideas. There are actually symbolic motifs that are also used on women's bodies, and so therefore they are tied into cultural knowledge and cultural history as well. So it's not just a mathematical or a graphic exercise.
Just to remind everybody, Vanessa is speaking on 2 o'clock on Saturday in this room. So for more from one of the world's experts on Cuba, please join us.
Thank you, Stephen. We have time for one more question. Whose hand go up first? Yes.
My question is actually to Wesley. I'd be interested to hear why you decided to start collecting.
Oh, for Wesley. Okay.
When I was in graduate school, weaving fabric, my focus was on non-repetitive pattern, and so, I just loved weaving and making it change and change and change. And then when I saw Kuba Textiles, they kind of just were speaking the same language, but in a different way. So it was just a natural affinity. I also think the fabrics are very masculine, with the dark neutrals. And so they were very easy to live with. So they were on the walls of my home and the studio. Just never got tired of looking at them. But I can recognize them. I can recognize the motifs that were picked up in your furniture. So.
Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. And I hope you'll come back to see the exhibition on Saturday and hear Vanessa's talk at 2 o'clock. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.